1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3.
What's up, guys? This is Mirror Music. This is episode, I don't even know what number this is, 52, 53, something like that. I don't know. I'm Andrew. That's Coop. Today we're talking about his shirt. How we doing, guys?
Big. Doing good. How are you, man?
Doing okay.
Yeah, I already know.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody should be happy.
This week is the anniversary of Life After Death's release on March, I think, 25th, which is probably when we're going to actually air this. So we're recording this beforehand, but you will be seeing it on the actual anniversary.
Life After Death is a masterful work. I want to get into posthumously, the effects of these songs had on rap culture during this episode a little bit, because really when people talk about the shiny suit era, well, people attach it to Puff Daddy's and the Family's No Way Out. But it really, the glitz and the glamour kind of starts here on Life After Death.
Okay.
And so, Big is kind of more of the, I know Puff is like the man behind the scenes, like really pushing all this stuff, but Big is really the first one to really like step out here and execute these things. And I want to talk about some of the more understated moments about Big on this album, but it's truly a masterful piece of work. For a lot of people, Big is the greatest MC of all time. This is the greatest evidence of that, because he is all over the place on this album in a wonderful way.
Okay.
Like, it's very rare that somebody has been all over the place on a rap album in terms of how many styles they employ, in terms of how many cadences they inflect, in terms of how many rhymes and hooks they put together, styles of songs, blending and meshing with artists, topics chosen, storytelling, hit making, street records. It has literally some of everything, but it still, for the most part, feels cohesive. It doesn't feel, it's not cohesive on the level of an Aquemini, or It Takes a Nation, or Only Built for Cuban Links. It's not cohesive like that. Or Doggy Style. It's not cohesive like that, but it is cohesive for it to be all over the place. But what it really is just a collection of records that show how masterful he was once he got his style down. Because this is him flexing his muscle in terms of feeling comfortable behind the mic. And in terms of mic performance, I would tell you that lyrically speaking, I would probably put it third all time behind Nas on It Was Written and Rakim on Let the Rhythm Hit 'Em. But as far as an overall mic performance and entertaining level of the mic performance, it's number one.
Wow. Okay.
Like, if we're talking overall, and that was the thing about Big, is that he was so great overall. And so
You can do everything, right?
Yeah, he did everything extremely well. This was the case study of when people talk about his versatility on the mic. Life After Death is the case study of how well he does all the things. Like, he Nas and Tupac, in my opinion, are the only rappers, and maybe not even Tupac, because of how people may feel about him lyrically, where it's like, well, if you were to really like section off all the things that make a rapper / MC, or whatever you'd like to call it, or whatever your perspective is, whatever makes it great, if you were to like categorize take 10 categories, and you were to categorize the rappers, Big would probably be the one that would hit all the 10 categories and be ranked high in all the 10 categories. Like, he wouldn't be like 10 somewhere on something. You know what I'm saying? In the 10 categories, he would land somewhere 1, 2, 3, 4 on
Okay.
most of them. It's like, well, voice, he would be top 5. You know,
Yes. Sure.
it's like, well, storytelling, he would be top 5. It's like, oh, well, delivery / cadence, he would be top 5. Impact, he would be top 5. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So he would like, yeah, he would hit the mark and hit the mark real high.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is he? Do I think lyrically he's better than a Nas or a Black Thought? No, but he's close enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's close enough.
He's yeah. That's a good way to think about it for me because excuse me, I'm not I mean I know his songs obviously, but like I haven't listened to his catalog extensively, like deeply and like dug into it for real, which is why this is an interesting episode for me because this is going back to our roots at Mirror Music where you're going to I mean we'll talk about stuff obviously, but you're also teaching me about stuff. But that's a good way for me to think about it that he's not necessarily the very best in a ton of things, but he is near the top in almost all of them. I think did I say that mirror that back to you correctly?
Yeah, I mean, I'll put it to you in terms that you can understand. He very much is a reflection of who you and I are academically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you and I academically used to be able to do some of everything. Like we
Yeah.
weren't necessarily the top math student, but we were pretty damn, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like that's
sure.
who he is. Yeah. And yeah.
That
So
makes
that's
sense.
that's a personal reflective way for you to think about who he is. It's like he can do everything. It's like no, he can do math, he can do science, he can do history, he can do English, you
Yeah.
know. This as a teacher. Some people they got one thing and that's the thing and they need to take that thing and run.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not that guy. He can take anything and run. It's like what you need me
That's
to do. That's
I
how a
got
lot of these records came to be. This
you. Yeah.
like a lot of these records aren't. Big is more like Big is. I think one of the things that people don't talk about, Big's a hip hop head,
Mm.
and so a lot of these records that people like. Well, yeah, Puff asked him to make those records. Those ain't the type of records that Big like to make necessarily. If you hear people talk about Big, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Okay.
So the records that he's known for, those are the records that Puff really like, more or less, kind of like was like, oh no, we need to make this.
The pop ones, not pop really, but you know what I mean,
Yeah,
like the ones that are gonna like
yeah. Big's joints
yeah.
are like niggas bleed, somebody gotta die. What's beef? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Those are the joints Big likes to make. 10 Crack Commandments.
Mm-hmm.
Like Puff is the one that's like saying, no, we got to make Hypnotize and Nasty Girl and More Money, More Problems. And yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the middle ground on this album with stuff like The World Is Filth. It's really like, it's like, it's like getting a assorted Godiva chocolates box.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. You got a
It
little
is.
something for everybody.
But it's high level chocolate though. That's
Yeah.
why I'm bringing up Godiva. It's like, oh no. It's not like, not to be funny. It's not like the stuff that you can just like run into Walmart or CVS and buy.
Right.
It's like, oh no. It's a Godiva
real
chocolate
stuff.
assortment box. It's like, oh no, this is real chocolate. This is the real stuff. And there's just like a little something of everything in there depending on what you like.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the stuff that I like is the stuff like Kick in the Door.
Right.
10 Crack Commandments. You're nobody till somebody kills you. My Downfall. Long Kiss Goodnight. There are records on there that I typically don't like that I do enjoy. Like for that time period in terms of what I used to listen to in 1997. So and that was the ability of Big. Like I wasn't the type of person that would be a fan of I Love the Dough. I Love the Dough is one of my favorite records off the album now. But that was one of those records that for the type of hip hop head that I was then when it came out, that wasn't my type of joint, but Big made it my type of joint. He was
That's
like that.
charisma, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it's Jay on there too. It's Big and Jay. It's
Right.
one of the few Big J records that actually was, you know what I'm saying, like done. And so that's part of it too. But the record's great. But I'm more of a what's beef. I got a story to tell. But that was the thing about it. He had something for everybody. Like, what kind of rap fan are you?
Yeah.
That's what Life After Death is. It's like, oh no, he literally made something for everybody. It is very All Eyes on Me-ish that way though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because All Eyes on Me, All Eyes on Me is that way too. I think that You know, Big is depending on Big makes rapping sound easier than anybody who ever lived.
Yeah, that's one of the notes. The flow is just effortless on here. Like it sounds like he's just chilling in the car. Like it's almost like it's not quite conversational because nobody can like just have a conversation like that really. But he just sounds like he's just talking. Like he's just
It's like
but
watching.
he's gliding though.
It's
He's gliding.
literally like watching the syrup slide down the stack of
Yep.
pancakes.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? That's what its flow is like. It's the syrup sliding down a stack of pancakes. It's marvelous. It
It's
is.
easy.
It is. It's
Inevitable, I guess, in that metaphor, right?
well, it's breathtaking the ease at which he started doing it. It wasn't necessary, and he was saying some stuff. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah.
Like he was saying some very, very fly and clever and poignant
Yeah,
things.
he is.
You know, and it's all about what you prefer. If you prefer content, you probably prefer All Eyes on Me because, well, Tupac is more content driven. But
Right.
if you like rap in terms of like hearing a rapper rap,
Yeah.
oh no, this is what I mean about the mic performance because it's just a joy to hear him rap on this album. It's a joy to hear him rap on this album. Like it's fun. Like so for me, I guess my reflective moment of this project on a personal level is that Kick in the Door was the first record that I heard. I was in Upward Bound at Johnson C. Smith.
Okay.
And there was this young lady that I had a crush on.
As you do, yes.
And I made it a point to sit right next to her. And she just started. It was. I'll never forget. It was 4:30 p.m. because that was like the midday mix. I think on like 10979. What's the main? I'm not sure. I forget.
Remember the one in Charlotte. Yeah.
Yeah, but out the middle of nowhere, she just started bobbing her head like crazy, and she was a DC chick. She was from DC.
Mm-hmm.
And I just looked over at her, and she was like, and she knew I was like, and this is literally around the time I had started rapping too. You know what I'm saying? And you have to understand, like I think I'm not even sure. Yeah, he had just passed. You know what I'm saying? And she was going crazy. She passed me her headphones, and I heard like the end of the. I think I heard like halfway through the second verse of "Kick in the Door," and then the third verse. And I was just like, "Oh my god!"
Oh yeah, he's going
I'm
crazy
like,
on there.
He's like I mean, and for me, that's probably the record on there that every time that I hear that album, that record takes me back to that place of hearing it for the first time, and just on some rap shit. Like, and here's the thing about it, and this is nothing against him on Ready to Die. When you listen to Kick in the Door, it's so evident that he is so much of a better rapper.
Yeah.
Than he was on the first album. The first album is an undisputed classic.
Yes,
he sounds great on that album.
Yeah,
he sounds great on that album. He's better. And think about this. Listen to what I'm saying. It's noticeable that he's better.
Right.
Very few people have ever been all-time great and gotten all-time better.
Yeah. That's hard.
He was already all-time great on the first album. And he went from all-time great to just like something just like, I mean, you know, it's the biggest what if because it's like, oh, he was somewhere at the point of his demise. I don't know if anybody had gotten that good that fast, Andrew.
Right.
No, as a matter of fact, ain't no thinking about it. Nobody had gotten that good that fast. Yeah, and still hasn't happened since. Nobody since has been gotten that good that fast because on Ready to Die, he's telling you like they asked him when he started rapping. He was like, when I was about 18 or 19. So he's like 25 when he dies. So it's not like he's been like, you know, some guys have been rapping since they're like 8, 9, 10 years old. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
It's like, oh no, this was something that he had just recently picked up. Like he mastered it very, very fast.
Yeah.
And so that's some of those things that when people talk about his greatness and say that he's the greatest, it's because they saw that the maturation process was so brief, but it was so astounding that it kind of like leaves you with that imprint of his greatness. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, because it happened so fast. Like
Right.
Tupac progressively got better as an MC and an album maker. Tupac was always a great song maker
Right.
because he's naturally a great writer and a poet. So, when you're a great
Mhm.
writer and you're a great poet, the songs eventually are going to hit. So Tupac was always going to hit on every album, even if the albums
Yeah.
weren't as consistent. And each album got progressively better in a lot of people's opinions. But it was a progression that you saw occur. You get what I'm saying? Like, we
Yeah.
got a chance to see it occur. It's like, the first album, it's like, like good, got some great records on there.
Yeah.
Second album is like, second album's dope, got some classic records on there. Third album is like, this album's great, this album's breathtaking. Fourth album's fucking classic. Fifth album's a classic. With Big,
Right.
it's like, first album is an undisputed classic. Then it's like, second album, it's like, I don't think I've ever heard anybody rap better than this. And then he's gone. And so
Yeah.
that's the imprint that it leaves you with.
Right.
It's like, but damn, I don't think I ever heard anybody, there was no progression. It was like, this guy's great. And then it's like, hold on, I don't think I've ever heard anybody rap better than this. And then he's gone. So it's like, it was no time to digest. It was like, boom, bam, gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That was one of the notes that I actually wrote. That there's a corollary here with Kurt Cobain, and because
yes.
he and Nirvana were also transcendent stars, and they had like Big had done like verses before Ready to Die, right? Like he had guested on other things.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. So like
How about this?
they had albums before that too, but
His guest catalog before his first album is probably longer than Kendrick's is now to this day. And I'm not
right.
joking.
Yeah. That's what I thought. Like I thought it was a pretty extensive. He had
Yeah.
shown up several places before that. And Nirvana had an album called Bleach that was kind of released independently before Nevermind, and then Nevermind was their kind of transcendent moment. And then you have In Utero, which was released shortly before, like 93, and then they recorded the this is not the purpose of the episode, but it does like match
No,
kind of the
no.
timeline. They recorded their MTV Unplugged performance in November of 93, and then then he died in April of 94, and then they released the Unplugged album November of 94. So you could see the leveling up as well happening with Heart-Shaped Box and with and then the songs they were playing on the Unplugged album too.
I love Heart-Shaped Box. That's one of my favorite Nirvana records. You actually, when you brought up Kurt Cobain, and you're right, there is correlation, excuse me. They both also talked about the morbid and talked about death a lot.
Yeah. And they were both great while they were living, and it's a worthwhile conversation to have whether they are held more highly because they died at the peak of their powers as opposed to continued making stuff afterwards.
Here's the thing about it. We call it the peak of their powers because they passed when they were making some of the most memorable music that we had ever heard for their respective genres. And that's what I mean about the coin having two sides to it, a head and a tails. It's like, well, we don't know if they get better or if they get worse.
Right.
Because what music has taught us, no matter how great you are.
Yeah.
Oh no, you're going to have your day. And that day is going to go and it's going to come.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not going to be forever. And so when we highlight something like the fact that the Rolling Stones went on tour, 2 years ago? 3?
Yeah. No, maybe even last year. Like it's been recently.
Yeah, in the last 2-3 years they went on tour.
And they're 80 now, right?
Right. When we, especially me, of course, talk about Nas's run with Hit Boy as he approached 50 years old in rap, making 6 albums in roughly 2 years, and they all being high quality albums and some classics, which is unheard of.
Yeah.
When we talk about these things, well, how fair is it to those guys that they have to get compared to Kurt Cobain
Yeah.
and a Notorious
Who
B.I.G.,
didn't live to have the
the ups and the downs, and
right.
survive it? Like, to
Yeah.
survive those down moments when you're not the hottest thing smoking in the business that you're in.
Yeah.
Like, Nirvana and Big don't know what it's like to not be on top and to deal through that and to make music through that.
Yeah, that's Nirvana and Pearl Jam, right? Like Pearl Jam did have that apex and then kind of not disappeared, but like had the whole Ticketmaster thing and kind of faded from at least the popular consciousness that they were still making music, and then have kind of had a resurgence lately too. And Grammys aside, not to get too far off track here, but when you're comparing the Stones to Nas, like the Rolling Stones haven't made, even though they won Rock Album of the Year, I'm rolling my eyes at that. You can see that, but like, um, they have not made anything that would qualify as a classic song. I don't think since Beast of Burden, which is '95, which is still pretty far in your career, but like,
Yeah, but I said,
it's
didn't they start in the late 50s?
um, they're starting early '60s probably. Yeah. Um, Satisfaction is happens around the same time you start seeing Beatles on Ed Sullivan. Like it's that about the same is Satisfaction, and Jumpin' Jack Flash and those kind of songs, the early ones. Start Me Up was 81, which was 25 or 20 years probably after they started. So um,
So 95 is like 35 years in.
yeah,
Yeah,
so which is about the same you're looking at with Nas too, right? I mean, it's about the same amount
it's an
of
approximation.
yeah, it's really rough, obviously, but like that was one of the notes that I just wrote down as you were talking. For those of you who think I'm not paying attention, I'm mostly just writing shit down. I know you know that, but I'm gonna say it out loud for the people. Um, the people we think of as the greatest artists generally either have the highest of high apexes, um, or they have a high moment and then disappear for a while and they have another one, because the coming back is the hard part, right?
Yes,
And
that's okay.
not that doing it the first time is easy, but like taking some time away and then showing back up and having something worth saying is really, really, really hard to do, and it doesn't happen to very many people.
Okay, so this is, and I've never told anybody this like live before, but this is
Mhm.
part of the discussion. When I have the Prince and Michael Jackson discussion with
Mhm.
people, this is something that I'll share since we're having this conversation about the artist in relationship to the catalog and the comeback and all those things. Listen very carefully what I'm about to say. And I always tell this to everybody who puts Mike ahead of Prince. And I'm like, what did Mike make that's even contending with Thriller after Thriller and Off the Wall?
Right.
Okay, so
There's
here's
some
the thing.
songs, but like not record, not albums.
Correct. No, Prince still made some of his best stuff after Purple Rain.
Yeah.
And and to me that's more of a testament to the artist's ability after that peak moment occurs
Yeah.
to go back down. Like, some of his best stuff, some of his best songs, some of his best compositions came right after Purple Rain, Andrew. Like
Mhm.
Raspberry Beret, Kiss,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
entire Sign of the Times album. And he also had that
Mhm.
lull where some of the projects didn't go as well, like Love Sexy. And so when he came back with Diamonds and Pearls, which is literally, about 12 years after his superstardom had started,
Mhm.
like,
Right.
oh no. And to make a classic album 12 years after, you know what I mean? And to have all
Mhm.
that stuff in between, no,
Yeah.
that's
And
different.
that's one of the reasons we're getting way off Big now, but like it does tie back to it. But that's one of the reasons I love REM so much too, is because they had two or three different peaks. With
Right.
they came
That
out of the gate with
matters.
Murmur, yeah, and then like mid late '80s there was another huge peak, and then but there's lots of great albums. After Automatic for the People is what most people would say is their apex. Losing My Religion comes right before that. So that 91, 92 was
Yeah.
generally considered, at least for sales wise, was their apex. And then but they have some really, really great records after that too.
Yeah, some of Stevie's best songs came after his best album runs. Like some of his best songs are actually his early '80s songs, but his best albums are in the '70s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, there it's. I mean,
it's just
tying
hard
it
when
back
you
to what we were talking about in Big
right.
and Life After Death. I mean, like
It's hard when you have artists like that floating out there and they're like, "This guy's the greatest," and it's like, oh, it's like
like,
I heard
is
what
it
you
more
heard,
important
but
to have
yeah.
the highest peak, or is it more important to have the longevity of the career, or is like which is kind of the inverse of what we were talking about him being not the very, very, very best at anything, but being close to the best at everything. Like it's the same kind of argument, right?
Okay, so also too, it's also about like how stuff gets put out and put together. Well,
Mhm.
if you want to look at careers, well, Tupac's career starts about 3 years before Big,
Mhm.
but the volume of the material and the albums that he released,
Yeah,
that's what I'm
there's a
saying,
lot.
Andrew. He did about 5, 6, 7 albums while he was here in about 5, 6, 7 years.
Right.
And so with Big, it's like, no, you got 2 albums and you got the most stellar guest appearances that anybody could ask for, but you got stellar guest appearances in these 2 projects. And it's like Pac had so much more material. And so you can compare Pac more. And also, too, Pac did transition through at least 2 phases. Like, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know how the balloons came up. So, what questions do you have about Life After Death? What were your favorite songs on here? Like, what are some of the things that you remember? Tell me what your
Like at the time, one of the notes that I wrote, this connects to, is I was surprised to see for an album that's a double album that is held, like you said in the opening, so highly in in the culture, and not just in hip hop culture, but like in the wider culture too. Um, I think part of the things it said that Rolling Stone, not that that's like the be all end all of this, but ranked it like 190 something out of 500 of the greatest albums that have ever been made of any genre, which is to be on that list at all is extraordinary for anybody. I was surprised to see how few crossover hits were on here for me. Like Hypnotize and More Money, More Problems are the only one. I mean, Nasty Girl, like when I came back to it, I was like, okay, yeah, I probably have heard that. Like, but those are the only two that were like transcendent, like broke out of that space hits. That let me say it like this. I was not like super hip hop aware at that point, in like the late 90s, but I was aware enough, and those are the only 2 songs that I remember from 1997.
So I'm glad you're bringing that up, Andrew. So this is one of the more sneaky pull-offs in rap history. The records on this album aren't big records.
Mm-mm.
Not not
Good,
talking
but they're
about
not
artists
like
big. I'm talking about big records.
yeah.
The album is actually rooted very much like, to me, Life After Death is more of a response to It Was Written, because much like It Was Written, if you actually listen to Life After Death, much like It Was Written, outside of the 2 lead singles,
Mhm.
which in Big's case is Hypnotized and More Money, More Problems. On It Was Written, it's I Rule the World and Street Dreams. If you remove those records, oh, it's a street album.
Mm.
The
Yeah,
record starts off like, think about this: somebody's got to die. It's how the album starts off.
right. And
But
it
then it
ends with
goes
nobody
to
ain't nobody till somebody kills you. Like it's yeah.
but and so what Big literally does on every song is he alternates. But the records aren't big. There's only a couple of home runs on here, but all of the records are consistently good.
Yeah.
That's why in his mic performance, even if the record's not great, is consistently great.
Mhm.
Disc 1 is beautifully put together in terms of the sequencing, because it goes Somebody Gotta Die, into Hypnotize,
Mhm.
into Kick in the Door. So it literally goes street, party, street. Then it goes into Fucking You Tonight, party. Then it goes into Last Days with the Lock, street. Then it goes into I Love the Dough, which is the Angela Winbush sample with a Jay-Z, party. Then it goes into What's Beef, street. Then it goes into the B.I.G interlude. People don't understand the B.I.G interlude is also on some rap shit. That comes from Audio 2.
Okay.
Yeah. Audio 2, the group that made Top Billin'. That's where that whole beat, that whole sample. Yeah, where you say B.I.G is getting this cream. It's always saying, what the hell does that mean? No. That's old shit. Go look up Audio 2.
Okay.
So that's old. So people who know rap, it's like, oh, that's big on the Audio 2 Top Billin' shit. You know what I'm saying? Not Top Billin' the record, but people know Audio 2 from the record Top Billin'.
Gotcha.
Let me see. And I'm just trying to bring up like the important moments like that people don't talk about on disc one.
I was really, really impressed. I don't want to sidetrack you too much from doing that, but I was really impressed with the Lox one, the Lox record.
The Last Days?
Yeah.
Okay, that's produced by Havoc from Mobb Deep.
Okay.
Havoc from Mobb Deep did that. DJ Premier did Kick in the Door. The Mad Rapper, the interlude to begin Kick in the Door.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's one of the best interludes in rap history too.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, the Mad Rapper. That's the creation of the Mad Rapper comes at Kick in the Door. It's like he literally sets it up like a talk show. He's like, why you so mad? It's like, yo, I'm out here. It's my 4th album. This is my 4th album, yo.
Yep.
He said this nigga made Wild Records. That shit was okay. That Ready to Die shit, it was all right. That shit was all right. But that's how dudes really were about Big.
Yeah.
Like Big rose so fast that people were really like that. And so when they spoke to it, it was really, really funny. And Kick in the Door is a diss record. He's taking shots at everybody. Everybody's getting some on Kick in the Door.
Yeah,
and I think I've talked about that before. Like at various times over the last 5 years I've been doing this, that Kick in the Door is actually like, see, there are outright diss records and there are subtle diss records. And sometimes the subtle diss records are just as good as the outright diss records. Kick in the Door is one of the examples tonight. But really what he shows you on disc one is the balancing act. And that's why I'm like going down the sequence. And it's like he's going back and forth between the streets and making the records that can be played on radio. Now, he's not hitting it out the park, and that's the thing that people need to understand. It's consistently great, him as an MC, but it's not like I Love the Dough was getting played on the radio like that. It's not like, well, you know, Fucking You Tonight with R. Kelly was getting played like that. That was getting played too. You could say that was a viable third single.
Okay.
So, and he had Sky's the Limit. So he had some stuff on there, but it wasn't One More Chance or Juicy level.
No, like I can say
but he's a better rapper.
Yeah, he is. I can say for myself, myself as a 16, I've been 16 years old then. Like I was conscious of Hypnotize for sure. I was conscious of More Money, More Problems. I was not conscious of the others. Like that is not to say that has more to do maybe with my ear and what I was paying attention to at that time. But I'm saying, just generally speaking, those are the two that like actually crossed over and were played everywhere and not just on like hip hop centric areas.
If you weren't connected to the fabric of hip hop, that was perfectly normal. That's not surprising at all. And that's what I mean is like, well, no, this album is a home run in our community, but it's not it. And I'm not saying this to be comparative, but it's just kind of there. Oh no, this album hit wise is not the home run that All Eyes on Me is.
No, All Eyes on Me. I'm gonna sit here and I'm not gonna do it, but I can sit here and name you like 5 or 6. Like there are a bunch of songs that come out of there. Lots of the Outkast albums do the same thing. There are a bunch of ones that cross through over, which is why I'm really interested. One of the many reasons I love listening to hip hop talks is that I get to re-experience the same time frame, but through the eyes of somebody who lived it like in real time, right? So like I can go back and listen to the Lox and go back and listen to Mobb Deep, and I can go back and listen to those kinds of things that didn't really cross over in the same way. Like I was not aware of them in the same kind of way in real time in 1997 or 6 or 98 or whatever. And hear what I was missing at that time, right? That's a fun experience for me.
You want to know what? It's actually it's more fun for me to speak about it now and relive the excitement again of what it felt like.
Yeah.
to be enthralled with these records, because you have to understand that for you, you're looking at it like an education, and you should.
Mm-hmm.
Like that you're emotionally intelligent, so you look at this like, oh no, this is an informative moment,
Yeah.
us doing this. And
Yeah.
so I like that, and I think your approach in the fact that you look at it like an informative moment is what has allowed you to absorb it so well and now be able to regurgitate the information, quite frankly, without asking me or Sean or AG any questions. You have your own synopsis that are kind of
Yeah.
clear and defined now, and I think that comes from like the years that you've taken and the mentality that you've had in your approach. My mentality is more so, oh man, I didn't realize how groundbreaking some of this stuff
Right.
was that I was so into when I was younger. Like, you have to understand this, and this is one of the things that I wanted to talk about today while we're here.
Yeah.
You know that I really didn't know that there were hip hop journalists or hip hop writers or stuff like that until I moved to Charlotte. Like, I didn't put people on to The Source and Double XL. People put me on. I
Okay.
didn't know. And so when you have to understand, when I'm writing my early reviews, when you're first meeting me,
Mm-hmm.
I had actually started rapping before I started writing reviews. So I was always more of a rapper first. So I was
Okay.
actually doing both simultaneously. And that's why when I was hearing the stuff that I was hearing, I was realizing it's like, oh no, like I'm listening to it like a rapper listens to it,
Right.
and not like somebody who is stepping back and reviewing it looks
Right.
at it. So you have to understand, most of this stuff I lived through. I lived through it from the eyes of an aspiring rapper.
Right. So what you can
Now,
learn from it. Right. Yeah.
now I'm going back and I get to review it as somebody that's more of a journalist
Right.
now about it. And so it's totally like, so now I'm looking at it, it's like, oh no, like some of these styles that Big is using, oh no, we hadn't heard nobody rap like this before.
Right.
I
And
just
that
was
helps
too
me to have
young
that
to
context too as
understand.
yeah.
Yeah. I was just too young to understand. It's like, oh no, nobody had never really flowed slick like this before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wrote a note as you were saying previously. Did they call Big an industry plant? I don't know if they used that word then, but like, because he came up so fast. Was
No,
that
that
like an
was
accusation hurled at him too?
no, that is a testament to his talent. Big is where talent and hard work and great marketing meet.
Okay.
Because he had the talent and the gifts. Puff had the marketing, and they
Right.
both had the hustle. Like, Big didn't mind being in the studio all day. Puff didn't mind promoting all day.
Yeah.
When you have somebody that is gifted on the mic, that doesn't mind being in the studio all day, and you have somebody that is the marketing genius that he is, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's the wonderful. It's when two worlds collide. When I talk about, okay, so how about this? Ready to Die starts off, and on the last part of Ready to Die, when Big's getting out of jail, the Shiznit by Snoop Dogg is playing in the background when Big is getting out of jail,
Mm-hmm.
off Doggy Style. When Ready to Die starts, the verse sample is a sample of Dr. Dre's bars from Lil Ghetto Boy off The Chronic.
Okay.
When I talk about the modern day industry machine that exists, The Chronic and Doggy Style created that machine. Puff and Big were the first ones to capitalize off the machine because they seen it happen in real time, firsthand, up close, while they were making Ready to Die.
Yeah.
So,
So they
so
just used the
Big,
lessons they learned and
so,
moved.
correct.
Okay.
So you have to understand, Big's hanging around Tupac. So and I'm not saying this in any sort of nefarious way about Big. Well, he's using Tupac's formula, which is make a street record for your dudes, make a hit record for the
Right.
girls. He's watching. So that's what Big is looking at as a rapper, okay?
Right.
And Big is not as poignant as Tupac as a writer.
Yeah.
And he's not as insightful as a writer. But he's just as entertaining, and on the microphone.
Yeah.
First of all, they both of them have two of the greatest rap voices ever, but Big's
Mm-hmm.
flow is slicker, and he's more entertaining. Like, he says more funny stuff.
Yeah.
Like Big will put something together, like Suicidal Thoughts, but he doesn't have a Death Around the Corner or If I Should Die Tonight like on one album. Like Pac
Right.
was really going through it. Big was more of an entertainer.
Gotcha.
So he's more entertaining on the mic. So he's taking the things that Pac is doing and putting it with his style and making it work. Puff is seeing what is working with the Chronic in Doggy Style and putting that part of the program together and making it work.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, Puff and Big took what was working for the West because they were the ones that were winning
Right.
and selling records, and they interpreted and made it East Coast. So Ice Cube, Tupac, Dre, and Snoop are the influence for Big
Right.
and that's part of why it happened so fast. They just took the pieces for their formula and plugged it up to Big. And Big is so gifted that he can just absorb that and do that. It's like, oh, no. Write about your struggle and how you came up. Bet. Juicy. Write about how you a player. Big Papa. You know what I mean? Write about how all the ladies love you now that you got money. One More Chance remix. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, no, everything Puff was asking Big to do, Big was like, oh, no, I can do that.
I can do
That's
that,
how gifted he was. So
Yeah.
it's that rare moment. His come up, like him, it happened so fast because it deserved to happen so fast. He was that gifted. It didn't happen
Yeah,
because
the
they
larger
were like,
the larger point I was trying to get at though was that there are people now who receive that accusation who are also really gifted too. And so I mean some of it's just the culture that was in like the late 90s as opposed to the culture is in 2025. But like it's just an interesting point of comparison.
I hear what you're saying, Andrew.
He absolutely did deserve it. Like I'm not don't catch me on the internet saying that, but like
No. That's not the part. And those people that you're talking about are gifted, but respectfully,
they're
they're
not
not
like
this
this.
guy. They're not this guy though. This guy's this would be. He's probably, if we were making a sports analysis, he's probably Gale Sayers.
Okay.
So Gale Sayers, if you're familiar with Gale Sayers,
I am, but yeah, tell people.
All the Chicagoans are familiar
Yeah.
with Gale Sayers. Gale Sayers, for a 5-year stretch, is probably the greatest running back who ever lived for 5 years.
Yeah.
I think in 5 years, he amassed over 8,000 yards rushing and like 60 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Had 6 touchdowns in one game. He very much, when Barry Sanders was coming out, Gale Sayers was who Barry Sanders got compared to. So for those of you,
Barry Sanders was the one I was thinking of as you were saying those numbers too. Like he also had kind of a
well, here's the thing. Barry
too.
Sanders actually at least played 10 years, and that's why I would call Big Barry, but he's not Barry because Barry actually did get deep in the game and play long enough to like get some of the things that come with it, you know?
Right.
Gale Sayers was a little bit more abbreviated. I think he played 5-6 years, and that's kind of closer to Big's career. But Gale Sayers is the only, I think, running back in the Hall of Fame that didn't play at least 10 years, and there's a reason for that. And that would be the same thing that I would tell you about Big. He's probably going to be the only Hall of Famer that didn't play for at least like 7-8 years, because Pac would be the only other guy, but Pac just has the catalog to still get him in the Hall. Big would be the only guy, much like Gale Sayers, that got in the Hall of Fame with such an abbreviated catalog. And that's why I would make that comparison, because there's nobody in the Hall of Fame who played as briefly as Gale Sayers did. And much like, and that would be Big in this context. And much like when you hear people talk about Gale Sayers, the people who talked about Gale Sayers that saw him play is like, no, that's the best running back I ever saw. Like, I know you say Barry Sanders and O.J. Simpson and Earl Campbell and Eric Dickerson and Walter Payton, the people that saw Gale Sayers, and even Jim Brown. Like, there are people that saw Gale Sayers and Jim Brown that still say Gale Sayers. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's very much like that with Big, where he has that Gale Sayers type of following for it's like, oh, for the people who were there that saw him, it's like, no. I saw that guy. That guy better than all those guys. And Big has that on people.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. There are lots of other things I wanted to get into. We don't have time to do a ton of them, but
let's get into them.
One of the other things that I noticed too is that my experience with features on especially albums in the 90s is that most of the features tended to be people from the general area of the artist, right? So like if you're a New York rapper, most of the features were people from New York and so forth and so on. And this one has I may be wrong about that, but I did notice that many of the features on Life After Death were 112 from Atlanta, Bone Thugs, Too Short. Like there are a bunch of people popping up that were. I know 112 is Bad Boy too, and that's where the connection is. But like um the there are people popping up from all over, not just New York. I mean, there were New York people too. There were Locks and Jay and people like that. But like it felt more diverse and more diverse on purpose. Is that a fair thing to say? Or is
Yes,
that
this is a more inclusionary party than Ready to Die. On Ready to Die, the
yeah,
only guest appearance is Method Man. And
right?
Wu-Tang was the hottest thing in the streets when Big
Right.
asked Meth to be on Ready to Die. So yes, the purpose was intentional and more inclusionary. Some of that was just Puff building out the roster though. So most of these guys you're hearing are Bad Boy guys. The Locks are signed to Bad Boy.
Okay.
Jay is from Brooklyn.
Right. That part I got. And 112 is Bad Boy
112
too.
signed to Bad Boy. Mace is signed to Bad Boy.
Right.
Carl Thomas is singing the hook to The World Is Filled. He signed to Bad Boy. Lil Kim, Junior Mafia, Big. So really, if you're talking about outside of the camp guest appearances, outside of the Bad Boy camp, that would be Jay, who was affiliated at the time. And people forget Puff actually executive produced Jay's second album, which is Volume 1.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Jay at the time was probably like honorary member of the camp because him and Big
Right.
got so tough. And Lil Kim, even though not signed to Bad Boy, much like Jay, and even preceding Jay, honorary member of the crew. So
Right.
the really only outsiders on the album, Andrew, are actually Too Short on The World Is Filled and Bone on Notorious Thugs. And DMC on The Hook to My Downfall. Everybody else is actually like a team player,
Right.
technically, at that
That
point in
makes
time.
sense.
Yeah. So it's not as it's more inclusionary, but it's still the clique though.
Right.
It's just the
Yeah.
clique has expanded. 3 years ago when Ready to Die is dropping, it was Big and Craig Mack. It's 3 years later. It's Big, Locks, Mace, Black
Yeah.
Rob. Jay Dunn came up and is hanging with Big now. Lil Kim has become a star in her own right after the Junior
Right.
Mafia hardcore. It's a whole team thing still though, even down to the producers. There's more outside production than there is outside artists. RZA has a track on here, Long Kiss Goodnight. Havoc did Last Day, the Locks record that you enjoy.
Right.
Premier did Kick in the Door and 10 Crack Commandments.
Wow. That's I mean, we have not really talked about Premier on this channel, though I know he's doing an album with Nas, so we were going to like get into that when probably more when that happens. But like those are two of the best records on Life After Death to me. Like those are like
What,
big,
Kick in the
big,
Door
big.
and 10 Crack Commandments?
Yeah, man.
Oh
Like those are
yeah. Okay, so
those,
he Life After Death does have the beauty of being one of those classic albums that people argue about
mm,
what their favorite 5 classic songs are.
yeah.
But I've maintained for a long time objectively that 10 Crack Commandments and Kick in the Door are both top 5 records on Life After Death, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of Premier's best stuff too.
Yeah. The production on this album jumped out too. That's one of my notes too. I don't want to like I feel like I'm jumping around a lot in these notes, but
No,
like
no, no. It's Life After
like
Death.
but
It's okay to jump around. There's tons of stuff to go to.
yeah, there's it's a lot, but like the production is one of the first things I noticed when I turned it on again this time. Both it being good and both it sounded very like 90s. Like I could like dial into that kind of time frame as
Oh
well.
no, he definitely tapped it. It's an it's an era defining album. It's just that era was brief
Yeah.
because DMX came shortly thereafter and made sure that that era ended. And that
Yeah.
era probably would have lasted longer had Big himself been there,
Mhm.
had he embraced that. But I try to stick to and this is what I mean. So the only reason that these songs aren't dated is because Big is so great on them.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was thinking. The production, like I don't know enough to say it sounds dated, but like it did not hit me the same way it probably would have 20 years ago.
The rap records, have the best beats. That's why 10 Crack Commandments and Kick in the Door hold up. The
Yeah.
stuff, the attempts to make the hits and the actual hits themselves, production wise, did not hold up because it's more trendy than it is classic.
That's one of my favorite things I've ever heard Rick Rubin say. I mean, he does lots of podcast kind of things that he does. And one of the things he said, though, was that if you're recording a piano or recording a real instrument or whatever, then like a piano in 1750 sounds the same as it does in 2025. Like a piano sounds like a piano, sounds like a piano, sounds like a piano. And when you're chasing trendy sounds, like his example was the 80s, but like it fits with this too. Like if you're playing the beeps and boops and whatever technology is the cutting edge of your time period, then you listen to a song from the 80s, hip hop or rock and roll or whatever, it sounds like it's from the 80s. And it's, which is why, to me, like, this is a little bit of a sidebar. Joni Mitchell put out an album in the mid 80s called Dog Eat Dog, where she's chasing like the tech ish sound. And it's, respectfully to her, love her, not very good. And which is why Blue and Court and Spark and Both Sides Now and all of those albums sound more modern, that were released in like the late 60s, early 70s, sound more modern now than ones you released in the mid 80s. And I think that's kind of the case here too. That's my ears are always pulled, always, and regardless of genre, to sounds that are organic and natural. That sounds very hippie thing to say, but that's just the truth of the matter.
Well, there's something to be said for that, and I do understand what you're saying. So here's what's happened with life after death over time. When people are like, Cooper, why do you like, the street stuff more than like the hit record stuff? It holds better.
Yeah.
So when Life After Death came out, there was arguments about, well, this record versus that record versus this record versus that record. Well, now, when you go back, what is it, 1920? So when you go back 28 years now, and you listen to it, go listen to the stuff that's holding up. The best stuff was the stuff that was more rooted in the elements of hip hop. That was more of the street stuff, which is actually more of the stuff that Big liked to do more than Puff. Right. So listen to what I'm about to say. Even for an artist as versatile and great as Big, the stuff that you like to do is probably going to be the stuff that holds as well. The stuff that he liked to do is the stuff that hold. Not the stuff that Puff liked to do. The stuff that Puff liked to do is not holding as well as much as the stuff that Big
it's selling
liked
the records
to do.
though at the time, right?
Big liked to do 10 Crack Commandments.
Yeah. And 10 Crack Commandments, I don't want to just say like real instruments or whatever, but they're like actual scratches in there. Like that's still like an actual person like touching a thing, right? And not just a right. That's an actual thing, like an actual tactile thing that somebody's actually touching and not just pushing a button, not chasing a keyboard sound, right? Like
so if you were actually ranked the best records, like if you were to listen to it now and rank the best records, and okay, so this is an album that has, I believe, 22 actual rap songs on it. If you were to rank the 10 best records, I'm not sure if one of those radio records would crack the top 10 if you're being objective, because Kick in the Door, 10 Crack Commandments, What's Beef, Last Days. The reason that you're enjoying Last Days so much is because Havoc, DJ Premier, RZA on Long Kiss Goodnight. Well, these are producers.
Long Kiss Goodnight would be another one I'd put on that list too. Yeah.
Well, these producers make classic hip hop record sounds.
Yeah.
Havoc, DJ Premier, RZA. So those records are holding up better than the trendy stuff that Puff wanted Big to do, because the stuff that's more rooted in the elements of what hip hop does, and Big does the hip hop thing very, very well, much like a Nas and a Rakim and a Jay. Like he's just as fundamentally rooted hip hop wise as those guys. Oh no, when you give him those soundscapes to skate over, it's gonna hold. And he likes to do it, and he's more creative at it than most. So let's go to the Premier records right quick. First of all, God help him. 10 Crack Commandments is actually sampling Chuck B.
Okay.
Which is probably the last guy that like it probably should be sampling. But that's one of those. And here's where Big is like Kurt Cobain. He made the evil genius part of stuff sound good. Think about this.
Yeah.
He's taking something biblical and taking Chuck B and making it into a street record about about selling crack. And he's speaking, and not only is he doing that, but he's speaking from the perspective of a reformed drug dealer. And not only that, and listen what I'm about to say, Andrew, he keeps it hip hop. On 10 Crack Commandments, he recites Ice Cube. Number 4, know you heard this before. Never get high on your own supply. That comes from Ice Cube on Death Certificate. Yeah.
All right.
So you see what I'm saying about 10 Crack Commandments? No, 10 Crack Commandments is the rap record that has everything. It's got the Chuck B sample. It's got that evil genius that he's taking something biblical and making it a street hip hop record. It has the ethos that hip hop is going to be drawn to. It has creativity. It has an Ice Cube a sample. You get what I'm saying? It has some of everything. That's the shining moment, not Hypnotized. Not Fucking You Tonight, not Sky's the Limit. Those aren't the shining moments of this album. That's not what he did exceptionally well. He did that exceptionally well a few times. When people think about Big and think that he was this big hit maker, he actually helped assist more hits than he actually made hits. He was like, oh no, if you needed a verse on a hit record, he would help enhance that and make it a mega hit. But as far as his hit record catalog isn't super long because his career wasn't. So as far as his big hit records, no, he's got Juicy, Big Papa, One More Chance remix. Those are the big hits that he made as a solo rap artist. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh no, so
there's not many relative to how he's held in the culture, but he's that good.
He doesn't have the records like the hit records that Pac does. He never did. He has the guest appearances. If you put the guest appearances in, if you're talking about the bars, if you want a bar seminar like Kicking the Door, oh no, he has all those things, but he was a hit maker, but he wasn't here long enough to make all of these big hits that people make it seem like he made. More Money, More Problems. When people, I mean, think about it. How many people really play More Money, More Problems now? It sounds dated.
Yeah.
What holds
too at some level, right? Like
yes, but what holds is him. It's him rapping on there that holds. That's what I mean about. Oh no, he's
his verses are still out of this world.
Right. B.I.G. P.O.P.P.A. No info for the DEA federal. Nobody used to rap like that. Federal agents mad because I'm fragrant. Tap my cell and my son in the basement. No, nobody rapped like that. Not on hit records. I know you sick of this Lane Brent flow girl. Say he's sweet like licorice. So get with this. It's easy, girlfriend. Here's a pen. No, he's great on all of these records. But when he does what he likes to do, oh, that's when it's masterful. It's like, how about this? When he's in evil genius hip hop mode and making records like Kicking the Door and What's Beef and 10 Crack Commandments, he rivals what Tupac does when Tupac makes So Many Tears and Dear Mama and Keep Your Head Up. It's like the antithesis of it, but the effect and the impact of it is the same because you're watching somebody operate at the highest level in their brilliance at what they do best. Like what Tupac does best is the introspective, poignant culture piece. So talking about his relationship with his mother, talking about him losing all of his friends to the game. Those are going to be his best records. Big's best records are when he's that evil genius that's actually like creating a hip hop narrative, but it's kind of dark. It's kind of sick. It's kind of twisted. 10 Crack Commandments.
Right.
Think about Kicking the Door, waving the 4-4. All you heard was Papa Don't Hit Me No More. That's from Get Money. When he's talking about his relationship situation, he took something from a hit record and made it into a street record. When people are talking about his hits, oh no, you're talking about Big on Get Money. That's a Junior Mafia record. That's not on Ready to Die or Life After Death. You're talking about the Get Money remix. That's not on Ready to Die or Life After Death.
Right.
Totals Can't You See? That's not on. That's on New Jersey Drive. The Only You remix and Only You. That's on 112's album. What's the 411 remix? That's on Mary J's album. Dolly My Baby. That's on Supercat's album. You Can't Stop the Rain. That's on Shaq's album. You get what I'm saying? Like when people, Brooklyn's Finest is on Jay's album. When people are talking about all these hits, it's like, oh no, he gave everybody hits. He didn't make a lot of hits
Himself, yeah, like by himself, yeah.
He didn't have time to. He made 2 albums. How can he make a bunch of hits when he only had 2 albums?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Think about this. How many hits did the Beatles have after 2 albums? Like, what if the Beatles stopped after
The
2
first
albums?
2, like not many. I mean, they had that's a different conversation. But I understand what you're saying. Like the first 2 records, not many. I mean, they're handfuls of 1 hits.
Like I look at it like this. Go to Prince's first 2 albums. How many hits Prince got after his first 2 albums?
Or REM, or like none of them.
Even Stevie. Go to Stevie and Ray Charles' first 2 albums. That's what I'm saying. Go to James Brown first couple albums. How many hits they got?
Yeah. You usually see like 1 or 2,
1
but
or
not
2.
Right. And if you're talking about like transcendent crossover hits with Big, they're 5, right? So like,
well, people have to understand this. His biggest transcendent crossover hit isn't on either one of his albums. Like One More Chance remix is the record that people identify with him as a hit maker. That's not on Life After Death or on the original version of Ready to Die. Yeah. Juicy and Big Papa are big hit records from Ready to Die. Hypnotize and More Money, More Problems are the big hit records from Life After Death. One More Chance remix is the record.
Right.
But if you actually want to go by hits, he actually did better at making the hits on Ready to Die than he did on Life After Death, because Juicy and Big Papa are bigger and better in cultural lexicon than Hypnotize and More Money, More Problems, outside of people using the phraseology More Money, More Problems.
Right. Like the opening of Juicy and I Love It When You Call Me Big Papa, like those are not quite on Cream's level about like walking into a boardroom of 50-year-old white guys and being able to say, like, but those are like, they're ones that anybody could quote. Like,
right. That's what I mean. Okay, so how about this? That boardroom of white men. If you walk into that boardroom of white men and you go, "It was all a dream."
Used to read Word Up, Matt. Like I mean, I know. Like,
right.
Obviously, I'm a different person in that context, but like,
no, you're not. Because here's what I realized about Juicy. This is old Buckhead shit. I was leaving what I like to call my black friends in Buckhead and the black clubs in Buckhead, because I was talking to this Spanish chick and she had a bunch of white friends, and so they were in this white club called Uranus. And so I went in there, and it used to be an 18 and up club, so you had to show your ID and get a band to get in there. And I was 21. So I got the band, I went in there. I got some drinks. I'm on the floor with the girl and her friends. And keep in mind, this is 20 years ago, Andrew. More than 20 years ago now. Juicy comes on. Her and all of her friends put their drinks in the air and start singing the song word for word. This is only 7 or 8 years after Juicy had come out, only 4 or 5 years after he had been gone. And so, no, Juicy is like that.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about those 50-year-old people that are in the boardroom, it's like, oh no, I used to party with them at Uranus and Buckhead. Yeah. They do know the words to Juicy. I was in the club with them that way. They do not know the words to Hypnotize. And quite frankly, they can't say some of the words to Hypnotize. That's what I mean about it. It's like Big's more of an evil genius on Life After Death. So some of the stuff isn't as palatable as people are like thinking that it is. And people keep forgetting he was in a whole East Coast, West Coast thing that it kind of had this whole culture and the whole sphere of music mired. And so it's a little bit more dark, dense, and intense than people that really.
It's definitely dark record, yeah.
Yeah, people are just listening to Sky's the Limit and Fucking You Tonight and like More Money, More Problems. And it's like, even on More Money, More Problems, he's like, no info for the DEA. Federal agents mad because I'm flagrant. You know, he's still talking greasy on there. And so, but as far as the hit making is there, but it's something that's more. Puff put these pieces together to make Big into that star.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can keep on going, but it's probably This has probably been about an hour's worth of actual non-interrupted content.
I was about to say your editing job is about to be a bitch for this episode.
No, this is just like cut. There's a few things to cut. Like I have to clean up the beginning of it and clean up this part right here too, and the part where
Cut,
kids
clean,
come in.
transit.
It'll be fine. There's like 4 or 5 times. It's not a big deal. So yeah, to make it hold together will be interesting. But no, man, it's a great album. It sounds dumb to say it's darker than I remembered it being, but like it's called Life After Death, and it was released like what 2 weeks after he died, or 3 weeks or something like that after he died. So it's going to be right, but it shows, I guess, kind of that his mind was already in kind of that place before anything ever happened to him too.
So my favorite record on Life After Death is My Downfall. At the beginning of the song, it's somebody calling his phone and communicating death threats to him. If you listen to him talk on there, he says Faye, as in faith, as in his wife at the time. Think about what's going on with this man, that he's receiving death threats on the phone, and that he thinks that his own wife might be involved, guys.
Yeah.
That's more of the real
It's
nature
paranoia.
and the tone of the album.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, don't be fooled by the hit records. The nature and the tone of that album is found right there in that moment. And I still think my downfall, for me, in my opinion, is I don't know if it's his best mic performance, because that's arguable, but it's my favorite mic performance of his, because it's him being him, but explaining where he's at this point in life with his lifestyle, but also making it very clear he doesn't know really who to trust or how to trust.
Yeah.
Like, he feels like everybody's against him. The song is called My Downfall. The hook goes, MCs have the gall to pray and pray for my downfall.
Yeah.
Like, you can't be any more clear
That's
about
pretty
how
direct,
you
yeah.
feel about everybody than he is on that record, you know? And it is very dark. It is very intense. It does have the own foreshadowing and foretelling of his death. You gained 30 pounds when you died. No lie. Lazy eye. I was high when they hit me. He says that on record.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
They caught him leaving a party. He had probably been smoking and drinking. He was right. So it's like, ooh, it's the goosebumps of him foretelling his own downfall. Yeah. It's, that's what more Life After Death is about. The last 3 songs on the album are called My Downfall, The Long Kiss Goodnight, and You're Nobody Till Somebody Kills You. Which is still the best ending to a rap album in the history of rap. Those 3 songs are the best 3 songs that close out a rap. And some albums have gotten close, but none yet. Not like that.
And to like tie a bow on it too, like the last time, and do a callback to Kurt Cobain and Notorious B.I.G. were both in some ways reluctant stars. They both have interviews that are like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm really uncomfortable with all this attention. Like I've heard both of them say that. I mean, that wasn't everything they had thought about the music industry, obviously, because they both did it on purpose and they both wanted to, but like they were both kind of reluctant stars in some ways. And like,
I think Big just didn't want to be a drug dealer, and he was really, really good at rap. So he was like, no, let me take this as far as
something.
Let me take this as far as I can. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, on In Utero, there's a song called Rape Me, which is kind of, people call it problematic for lots of reasons. But I mean, he's talking about the music industry too, right? He's talking about like,
I thought it was about the music industry the first time I heard it.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about. And then very much in the same way, you have Long Kiss Goodnight and You're Nobody Till Somebody Kills You at the end of Life After Death. Well, those are not the last times you hear his voice, but last times you hear his voice on like his solo projects anyway, because you hear him on, he has they put a verse on I'll Be Missing You Too, I think. But the last times we hear Kurt Cobain's voice recorded are are a song called "Where Did You Sleep Last Night" at the end of MTV Unplugged, which has very, very, very much the same both paranoia
Yes.
and pain in it, that you're nobody till somebody kills you. I mean, and the other most famous song on that Unplugged album is "The Man Who Sold the World" too, which is also very similar in thematic.
And here's the thing: you hate it for the artists that exist in that realm where they do those things so well. That those are the things
Yeah.
that they do well, because unfortunately, it usually is attached to the reality of their life.
Yeah.
Usually,
Yeah.
it's unfortunate.
Yeah. He was not
Like,
the most stable person. Courtney Love obviously was not the most stable person when,
how about this? If you were afraid of Tupac dying as a hip hop fan, it's because Tupac was more revolutionary.
yeah.
You were afraid about Big dying because Big appeared to be a little bit more obsessed with the morbid.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the things that he went through made him more obsessed with the morbid, and it came out in his style.
Right.
Makes for some of the most brilliant rap ever done. But as far as the person, it makes it, it's like,
Yeah.
just hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish it didn't take, or I guess it doesn't have to take that kind of personal pain to make that kind of music, but
This
they
is what I
often do
mean.
come together though.
Well, this is what I mean about, well, we don't know what would happen, because what happens when you're removed from those morbid situations and circumstances is in 10, 15 years removed, and that's what you do best at your craft. What are you going to craft then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think
Like,
that
can you talk about the positive as well as you talk about the morbid? What are the songs going to
this is
translate
definitely a
into?
different skill set. Like,
Because
I
here's,
think it's a myth. Personal. This is my personal opinion. That's a myth that you have to be um personally in some psychological pain to be able to write great things. Like, I don't think that's true. I think that's a myth that is put out by not just these artists, but the Sylvia Plaths kind of the world too, right?
I
But
don't
I don't think it's true.
I don't disagree with you, but I
Mhm.
don't agree with you. I'm somewhere in the middle. I believe that the artists that express that pain have experienced that pain, but I don't think it's something that you have to live out through the duration. I do think
Right.
that it's something that can be tapped back into. It's like
Yeah.
a well
But you don't
that
have
you
to
go
exist
to
in
get.
that space all the time though. Right.
Right, you have to go. But here's the problem with it is that I think for most artists that have lived in it, they feel the need to live in it to create it, instead of
Yeah.
looking at it like a well that they can go get water from.
Yeah. And then you have to be able to find a space that's outside of that. Right. And
Correct.
to exist in. Yeah, I
Safe
think that's a good
places,
place.
safe places and spaces, even
Yeah.
for artists, sir.
Yeah, man. All right. So this has been a retrospective of Life After Death. We will probably come back to Life After Death when we do when it's actually the 30th anniversary of it in a couple of years. But um, it's an interesting conversation though, and as I have a page of notes, we probably touched on half to a third of them. So we have plenty of stuff to come back to for sure. So this
Yeah.
is Mirror Music. This is Life After Death's anniversary. I'm Andrew, that's Coop, and we'll see y'all next time. Take care, y'all.